Hello and welcome to SquishiVision, where I am about to react to episode 3 of season 3 of Strange New World, Shuttle to Kenfori. A interesting episode. It is not the first time but one of the Alexa, Volume 0. Not the first time that Star Trek has meddled. That sounds a bit negative. Interacted with the zombie genre. I know there was an episode of Enterprise where there were some Vulcans who were zombie-ish. Obviously, the Borg in certain depictions, especially in First Contact, were zombie-coded. I think there's probably some things from Discovery were like zombie coded as well. Like it must have been. Was there anything else that was kind of zombie-ish? I have like the slightest feeling. Possibly Void and DS9 dabbled, but I mean, they might have just like done like the Borg. Because actually, like, you go to zombies. You go to kind of sci-fi zombies are the Borg. But this is perhaps. These are like plant zombies, and I saw some on YouTube in the comparison between this and Last of Us, which I haven't seen, so I don't know. But from what I vaguely know of Last of Us, they have like plant zombies. It's all like fungal infections, and that's essentially what's kind of happened here. Although they seem to be more humanoid and regain their human form rather than the weird plant things. I don't know. I've not played Last of Us. So the premise is essentially that Pike and Mabengu need to go to this abandoned planet to get a plant to cure Battelle, and it's like in a abandoned science facilities. Obviously, all the weird science stuff's got out and made these kind of like zombie figures. It's basically just an excuse to do Star Trek for zombies. There is some pretty gory shots for Star Trek, which, I mean, this episode's 18 plus. You see someone getting eaten alive. Fortunately, nothing too graphic there. A few injured details of people getting stabbed. And then one really grotesque shot where the Vulcan stomps on the zombie's head. And like these aren't corpses, they're possessed living things, I think is the take they were going for. But she stomps on the head of a zombie and it just goes and I'm like, no, thank you. There's a reason I never went to see Midsummer. I don't want to see heads going kaplush like grapes. No, even like Star Trek Into Darkness had the reservedness to cut away from that. So yeah, I don't like my gore in Star Trek. I think Star Trek is a public service in terms of like progressive media that ideally it should be accessible to a family audience. This is not accessible to a family. I would not have watched this as a kid growing up. I could barely watch it as it is. So yeah, but I mean, hey, look, it was still kind of like, it was decent. It wasn't too far. It wasn't jump scary, which I'm grateful for. It was just a bit graphic. And then we get this kind of revelation that this is the daughter of the Klingon. I completely forgot my storyline about Mabengu assassinating a Klingon in what was it, the last Mabenga, assassinated in the last season or first season. I can't actually remember how far ago it was. I reread the plot synopsis of it to remind myself, and I'm like, that's kind of a weird thing that kind of happened, because like even like going on the premise, it kind of like escalated if I remember. Then we cut to it happening, and we never really got explained why, and like whether or not. And it's difficult because like I have complicated feelings in that. When I was edgy and younger, I used to be I used to hold the position of being pro-death sentence because I believed that grotesque humans should like just be removed from danger. And then as I matured as a person, I kind of switched. I became anti-death sentence because I believe that everyone has the potential to be rehabilitated. And also because I became more, well, not disillusioned. I realised what the justice system was, which was flawed and problematic, and that we can't trust, that due process. And then I grew up more, and I became more revolutionary, more revolutionary, and it's easier for me to sympathise with. Well, I became more pro direct action, more pro. Maybe I was always direct for action, but like I was not understand what being direct action actually meant, and that includes violent direct action, like when all peaceful forms of direct action end. And violence doesn't necessarily mean against people, but like sometimes, we've seen historically that you can't always get what you want, or you can't always get change through peaceful action. I mean, even Star Trek has explored that concept. But, so I sympathise more with people who think the only solution to deal with instigators of extreme violence on a geopolitical level is ultimately with their death, and that's the only consequence of their actions. Do I hold that view? I'm not sure. I think it's complicated. But I think also Star Trek's meant to like be more an ideal. And I know Star Trek made in the 60s and 90s wouldn't have done this the way it did. I don't think. Actually, that being said, there was an episode of DS9 where Jadzia Dax essentially goes to assassinate someone in a revenge plot, a personal revenge plot, and it's kind of, even then, that's like kind of like, I guess, a Klingon thing that and Jadzia is like an honorary Klingon, so you can kind of like detach from it. This is essentially someone who is like, for personal political reasons, fully believe that this person deserves to die. And I think it's weird because the episode like is unclear on how much this like former war criminal had like redeemed themselves. And like defected, and I guess that's what makes it weird for me. Anyway, that's like episodes from ages ago. I mean, I can't remember what I said at that time, but we get the consequence of her actions here, where the daughter of that Klingon basically somehow tracks the Starfleet shuttle that has Mabenga in it, and which I found really confusing, to be honest. And wants to challenge them to a fight to death, which I guess fair enough, Klingons, so she drags them over to the roof. They have there's a convenient battle ring there, formed by force fields that keeps the zombies out long enough for them to complete their business. And they do. Mabenga wins. Forfeits the match. The Klingon accepts that. Well, she doesn't accept it, but she doesn't doing backstabbing or tries to prolong the attack. She considers herself beaten and then sacrifices herself to the zombies and gets eaten alive, which sucks because I can't imagine being eaten alive is a particularly nice way to go. But I guess the big consequence of this is that Mabenga reveals to Pike that he willingly assassinated. And there's some ambiguity. Well, no. I said there's a slight part where the episode might have had us believe that he was just saying that to get Pike out of the situation, but actually I think it's pretty clear from the Pike Mabanga interaction that Mabanga did murder the Klingon, although he did say that it was potentially still a self-defense situation, just one that he could have ended non-fatally, but chose to go fatal because of who this person was, which I guess is a reasonable kind of like complicated way to like solve the situation. But it seems like there's going to be no further consequences to that action. Pike is like, you're just a person. This mission doesn't really happen officially anyway, so there's no report to really make about it. I think it's interesting. I think maybe it should have been explored more. It was kind of tacked on to what is essentially a prolonged zombie mission. There's also the whole plot about treatment, which I didn't quite follow. Maybe this is like from the Technobabble, but what was exactly going on? But essentially, I think they're gonna have to turn Batel into a gone human hybrid, just so she can either like survive the pregnancy or something or another. Which I guess does kind of like help reconcile a slight continuity error where it's established that the gone like eggs or like give birth. But in this show seems to imply that they parasitically impregnate another being. And I guess it just suggests that they do both. But God can obviously survive their own pregnancies. I think that's kind of what they were getting at. That they were going to like give her God DNA. It was kind of fun in there. All I guess we need to know conflict-wise was that Pike felt that Pike was annoyed that he wasn't consulted in it. Everyone else, I think rightfully, told Pike that it's not your choice. Whether you know, it's Batel's choice. Batel didn't want to. And obviously, he was annoyed at Batel for not telling him, but she was like, "You would just have made me feel guilty," and I was like, objectively the right kind of thing to do with your treatment. So we'll see how that turns out. It's clear that this Batel recovery thing is going to be a long-term thing, which I think is nice because like a lot of like Star Trek historically has been, oh, this person's had a traumatic, extreme injury of sorts, up to and including being turned into a Borg, or sorry, even worse than that, a salamander. But we can fix that at the end of the episode. Don't worry about it. Magic, science, medicine, techno, babble, it's going to happen at the end. Whereas we're reinforcing how severe being impregnated by the Born ultimately is, because it's now like a season-long arc to try and like just not even like treat her, just save her life. So I can get behind kind of that. I did actually enjoy the B-plot on the bridge, which was continuing Ortega's arc, where she's clearly suffering PTSD, and so becoming a bit more kind of insubordinate, like talking back to orders, offering alternative opinions out of line, and out of tone. And then being directly subordinate, but like jeopardizing the mission by sabotaging it in a very subtle way, which she could have got away with if she was less competent. But obviously, Una is more kind of on the ball with what she was trying to do and caught that. And I think that was acted very well between everyone involved, like between Chin and Riley, between Lan, between Ortega's, the way that they all like discussed in a kind of very professional way, in a very kind of like I like that kind of like professional kind of like disagreement where like, and I like it when like you got like the lieutenant or junior officer having to like portray their dissatisfaction, but in a way which isn't like overt, because they're still kind of wanting to respect the chain of command. I guess my only kind of nitpick. Actually, I got a few nitpicks this episode that I've kind of just triggered in my memory. But one kind of nitpick around that is, I would have liked Rai to go one step further and be like, clearly you're suffering from your traumatic experience. So rather than just punishing you, because we should be about restorative action, not punitive action, rather than punishing you by taking you off rotation. I mean, it's not punishment. You could obviously contextualize taking you off rotation as you're not ready. And return command training is a bit punitive, I think. It would have been perhaps more appropriate to be like, you clearly need more therapy before we can put you in a situation of being a senior helm officer. And I think that was missing from an era of Star Trek, which has been really kind of on the ball with its mental health depiction. So that part I'm a wee bit disappointed with. And I think that's all the arcs. Okay, other nitpicks. Again, it's annoying. I know it's not this episode, but the fact that there's like bright blue glowing lights on the phasers, it's such a bad idea. One, it gives the opposition away, and like gives them a very potent target. Because if you're holding your phaser here and they shoot at it, and if they're shooting in your direction, that's your face. I mean, I guess if they're off to the side, still angles of attack, that's not ideal. Also, a big blue LED right in front of your face. I know from a TV perspective why we keep doing this, but I wish that piece would stop, because that's gonna wreck your night vision. This isn't a dark scene. That's gonna like not just wreck your night vision, like even in daylight, a blue LED here is gonna like impact on your aim. I was watching that and being like, why do they have these bright blue lights as indicators? Like such obvious places too. It's funny actually, because I have joined a LARP system called The Zone, which is, I describe it as pre-post-apocalyptic. It's off topic to explain why I call it that. But it uses essentially laser tag as the weapon system, and the weapons have green LEDs under the barrel as indicator lights, which obviously you kind of need on a device that has no other, like your device needs some kind of feedback, so you know it's on and it's working. But because on the barrel, and the barrel's in front of you, and if you're doing things at night, and green, it's not as bad as blue or white, but green is still one of the colours that is very untactical and is visible from a large distance. Red is much better. Red is like really hard to see from a distance. Red would be much better light for the situation, but I imagine it might interfere. I don't know if it would interfere actually with the infrared. It really annoys me. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'm gonna now play some Mana Lords because I've been on annual leave for almost a week now. Almost a week now, and I haven't done game. Actually, I think I did like a bit of Mana Lords gaming, and then, to like make sure that the game was working, and then we kind of realized I forgot how to play the game. So I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna take off this outfit, and we're gonna do that. So get out of my house, but not too far. Okay, bye.